Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, just give me a second here to get organized. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I'll be all right. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, I'm not quite sure which one we're on. Is it 10 or 9? Is it 11? Okay, we'll go with 11. The mobile? Mobile? What mobile?
Look through your lecture.
Oh, you mean to to check this? Good, I suppose. All right, let's see if I can do that. Yeah, without Mahima, I don't know what to do. So, I don't. Okay, so this is 12:31. That was last Wednesday. That was New Year's Eve. That was the last one. On this 31st day of December 2025, we said that you get what we read from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Dravida Dasa. Without knowledge, you're going to be entangled in bad karma, and you'll keep coming. Life should chant the name incessantly.
Prabhu, today's verse is 15.7.
7?
Yes, Prabhu.
No way. Why do you think we're in 7?
Oh no, not 7 actually. I think I'm wrong. Sorry.
All right. Anyway, it's not going to work. So, all right. We'll just go with it. Foolish can understand not living and can quit his body. Yeah, we didn't do 9 yet. Yeah, the top of page 602. On this 5th day of January, 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're reading the 15th chapter, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. Text number 9 at the top of page 602. Shrotram, Chakshu, Sparshanamcha, Rasanam, Granam, Evacha, Adhishtaya, Manaschayam, Vishayan, Upasevate, Shrotram Chakshu Sparshanamcha, Rasanam Granam Evacha, Adhishtaya Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate, Shrotram Chakshu Sparshanamcha, Rasanam Granam Evacha, Adhishtaya Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate. Go ahead, Jed. Shrotram Chakshu Sparshanamcha, Rasanam Granam Evacha, Adhishtaya Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate. Bhushan. Shrotram Chakshu Sparshanamcha, Rasanam Granam Evacha, Adhishtaya Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate. Luis. Shrotram Chakshu Sparshanamcha, Rasanam Granam Evacha, Adhishtaya Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate. Shrotram Chakshu Sparshanamcha, Rasanam Granam Evacha, Adhishtaya Manaschayam, Vishayan Upasevate. Anyone online?
Shrotram
Krishna.
Chakshu. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Shrotram Chakshu Sparasham Cha.
Shrotram Chakshu Sparshanamcha,
Rashasham Granam Eva Cha.
Rasanam Granam Evacha,
Adhishtaya manaschayam.
Adhishtaya manaschayam.
Vishayam upashevate.
Vishayan upasevate. Someone else?
Hare Krishna Dravida Dasa, it's Ferdy.
Go ahead, Ferdy.
Shtotram chakshu sparshanam cha.
Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha.
Rasanam granameva cha.
Rasanam granam evacha.
Abhishtaya manaschayam.
Adhishtaya manaschayam.
Vishayan upasevate.
Vishayan upasevate. Shrotram, ears. Chakshu, eyes. Sparshanam, touch. Cha, also. Rasanam, tongue. Granam, smelling power. Eva, also cha. And adhishtaya, being situated in. Manaha, mind. Cha, also. Ayam, he. Vishayan, sense objects. Upasevate, enjoys. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna. So, before I read this translation, read the one before it. Krishna is explaining the process of transmigration. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Purport. In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure, like water. But if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure. But consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities or modes of nature. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When therefore one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hog, demigod, or one of many other forms, for there are 8,400,000 species. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So Krishna is very graphically describing the process of transmigration. This goes back to to text 8 and 9. And it all depends on association. You remember this key verse in the 13th chapter, Purusha pakatisto hi bhunkte pakati jan gunan karanam gunasangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. So the Purusha, the living entity, was by nature Prakriti, but we're acting as the Purusha, the enjoyer, in other words, the conditioned soul, situated in nature, Prakritisto, he. Bhunkte here means experiencing, because you don't enjoy, sometimes you suffer. Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan. So he experiences the modes of nature generated from Prakriti. Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan. And karananguna sangasa, as he chooses to associate with those modes. Because, especially in human life, in animal life, you don't have much of a choice. Whatever presents itself to you, you have to react to it, But human life, you can think about these things, understanding Bhagavad Gita, and decide to associate with things in the mode of goodness rather than the mode of passion and ignorance. And that's the whole process of bhakti yoga, is through higher intelligence, by hearing and by studying, you learn how to control the mind and the senses. The mind is sometimes considered a sixth sense. And associate with the mode in such a way, with the mode of goodness, or pure goodness, so that your consciousness becomes conditioned in that way, and you want certain things that are related to Krishna, and you automatically give up the other things. That famous verse in the 2nd chapter, 1st canto, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha. When one engages in Bhakti Yoga service to Vasudeva, Krishna, then Janayati, same word in English, generates, Ashu quickly, vairagyam, detachment from non-Krishna things. Janayadyashi vairagyam, jnanam cha yadhoityagam, and knowledge. Knowledge is generated. So that you're strengthening your subtle body, you're strengthening your intelligence, and you're reforming your likes and dislikes, you know. In fact, ideally, you don't have aversions. You have simply detachment, you know, and attraction to Krishna. That's the ideal, you know. That's what we're trying to cultivate, and only in human life can we do that. If you get born in the body of a dog, you'll have an ear, you'll have eyes, you'll have all of these different things, but you don't have the superior intelligence to control them. So you're completely conditioned by, you know, doggish mentality. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you. This is a little bit of a joke. Again, on my walk, so much happens on the walk. So, you know, these dogs, it's like walking the dog. When the cold weather, wet weather, you don't see so many dog walkers. But it was a little warmer, you know. And so there's, if you go up cats, they kind of maintain it a little bit, you know. So there's a little bit of grass on either side, you know. So the dogs like that. So they'll go, and you know how they will. They'll start sniffing here and there, you know, so they can make a deposit, you know. So anyway, I'm watching from a distance because I'm walking down the street, and the dog is going here and here and here, and the guy can't really, you know, he's being servant of the dog. So I get to the guy, and I say, you know, I invented a new word. The dogs, when they're going around, when they're finding different smells, right? So some of those smells are more significant than others. He's found that very funny. I don't know if it'll make the dictionary, but that's the way it is, you know. In other words, there's so many things passing your senses. Some of them you just go by, but then something catches your attention. It's significant, you know. It's something that attracts, and it goes into your conditioning, you know. If you have no relation to Krishna, but a purely Krishna conscious person, he's always thinking of Krishna and sees everything in relation to Krishna. You know, that's the idea. There's even a verse, I forget the Bengali, in Lord Chaitanya's teaching, I think Sanatana Goswami, that the fully realized soul, he sees the tree, but he doesn't actually see only a tree. He sees Krishna. He sees the soul in the tree, and he understands how this soul took this body of a tree, because, you know. So everything reminds him of Krishna. Now you come into a temple environment, or any kind of dham, you know, if we had a bigger, you know, some land and everything, you go to one of our farm communities, and everything is related to Krishna. The cows, you know, are going to be giving the milk, and the milk will be then, some of it churned, you know, and butter, they'll make milk sweets out of it. So, and like you walk into this temple, and what's so significant about the temple? Everything is related to Krishna. You know, I remember when I first came here, I was fascinated by there's a band going on here, right? You have someone playing some kind of trumpet there, you know, and the kartals and the drum. And then you had a flute player, but he had his back turned, right there, you see? Because if he didn't have his back turned, you might think it was Krishna. But it's back turned, okay, they put that, he's a flute player, but he's not a Krishna. So anyway, and believe it or not, you know, it's interesting about this temple when I first arrived there. You've been here a long time. You remember when there were certain parts of it that hadn't been painted? You know? I mean, I came here in '89, but I guess they ran out of painters or something, and so for a while it was... And then gradually there was some devotees got up there and they painted it. But there's still some things left. These little flowers on the side, pointing inside like that. You know, if you look up, there's 3 and 3, and then there's little gold-plated things painted on there. There was a whole section here that didn't have that on this side. And I noticed it, and I mentioned it to one devotee, and there was one lady who had some painting abilities, and I mentioned, would you like to do that? And she did. She would get up on the thing, and she would paint them all, you know. So it's finally completed. If you look everywhere, it's all completed. But it represents so much devotion. You learn about this, you know, how this temple came to be. Purusha was here. He's been here forever, you know. And he has a series of photographs showing the devotees working on things, black and white. It's all black and white, you know. And how much effort went into it. I think Gunagari was married at the time, and his wife was an artist. She went to India to learn, get these shapes. These are like traditional shapes, this thing coming up like this. Huh? Yeah. And it kind of uplifts the mind. I'm telling you, architecture is so important. I'll tell you an incident that happened. One of my India trips, and we're always looking for the cheapest flight, So there was one flight that went through, what was it? It was, I forget the name of the country. It was an Eastern European country that had somehow broken away from the Soviet Union, but it was still very strict. And the flight stopped there, it was a layover there. So it had, the Soviets, the architecture often was very depressing, They'd have these big apartment buildings, but there was hardly anything. It was very monolithic, it was very not inviting. So not only that, you walk outside and there's all that, but there was a whole bunch of guys when you got off the plane in these black leather jackets. So what's this all about, So it turns out that the dictator had just been deposed, like within the last half a year or something. And he had his army, this was their uniform, black jackets. These guys weren't part of the army, but they wanted to identify with that tough guy thing. So they were roaming around the airport, and you had this thing like. So the mood was infested with this atheistic kind of materialistic thing, especially you walk outside and there's these monolithic apartment buildings, with no features or anything. It was just too much. So this is how culture has gone on, and this is part of our conditioning. What is the architecture, the music that's being played, all of this provides a certain mentality and conditions you. So therefore, in Krishna consciousness, it's a culture. Prabhupada would call that, a cult, but it's a culture. There's a certain kind of music, certain kind of food, certain kind of art, dance, and there's, of course, literature, sound. All of this is all related to Krishna. It's meant to increase your attraction to Krishna. These beautiful art. Prabhupada was so happy to see that these artists had joined, because he was really into art. He himself was somewhat of an artist. I don't know if you know that. And he would see these, we see these paintings, they're attractive. He would see them as windows to the spiritual world. He would actually, see, if he looks at this painting, oh, Ram and Sita, remember, he remembered the whole thing, so much deeper experience. So this is what Krishna is describing, the more or less the mechanics of how it happens. And we're going to get another ear, eye, throat, So the question is, are we going to strive so that there are spiritual ears, spiritual eyes, so that we're in our spiritual body in relation to Krishna? That's the ideal. And these bodies are coverings, and so they reflect the reality of the body, but in an imperfect way because it's conditioned. It has to do with matter. So it's very interesting. So the question is, what kind of body are we going to get? And it's in our hands as we control our lower self by a purified intelligence made strong through association. Say, no, we'll think of this, and we'll chant the mantra, and even when we're chanting, we have to place our mind on it and hear every syllable, and that's a big important part. So this is all very fascinating. Okay, text 10. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanana pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. Here enjoys can also be, in spirit. Sometimes it's suffering. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Purport. The word jnana chakshusha is very significant. That's the eyes of knowledge. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge understood from the Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Every living entity is quitting his body under certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances, and he is enjoying under certain circumstances under the spell of material nature. As a result, he's suffering different kinds of, okay, this has been fixed. He is experiencing different kinds of happiness and distress under the illusion of sense enjoyment. Persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned soul, living entity, is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general, for their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. So, jnana chakshus, there's this word, seeing through the eyes of Shastra. That's the jnana chakshus. And as I was describing, a pure devotee, he sees everything in relation to Krishna. He sees the people, the conditioned souls. I see, so many birds coming around. There's a restaurant at the corner of Garnet and Cass. And there's 2 trash cans outside. And, trash cans means that the homeless guys are going to try to get the cans, the little cans, right? They turn them in. They used to be a dime. Maybe they get 15 cents now, inflation, I don't know. But there's something in there. So, of course, they're emptying it in some of yesterday's food gets spilled out, and the birds come and they're doing their thing, So you can, a realized soul is saying, oh, here are these souls who are conditioned in these bodies of birds, and, they can't find enough food elsewhere, so they come in here, and as soon as this guy comes along, chanting this mantra, they get scared, and they go into the road, and of course the cars come and they scare them and they go up. They have their defense. It's flying away. So it's kind of tragic in one sense. Here's a soul come down from the spiritual world, eternally blissful, but now in this body with very small intelligence and just basically trying to figure out how to eat, sleep, and defending. Defending means basically fleeing. So, but he sees that way. And even the inanimate things, the cars and all the buildings, well, how did they get to be like that? Some intelligent person, use this intelligence to marshal the necessities to build these things. So everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. I see the trees, these trees, some of them are huge, tall, with a little sprout at the top. They have a little... And it's like big sentinels, they're sitting there, and then if the wind blows, you see it on the sidewalk, comes in. So it's all, and when the wind is being moved in fear of me, there's one section, everything's moving in fear of the Lord, So in that way, as Krishna describes in the 7th chapter, I am the light of the sun and the moon and everything, that everything can remind you of the Lord. You see His hand in everything. Rather than this foolish atheistic view that everything just arose from matter automatically, which is a demonic view. Asatyam apatishtam te jagadahu anishwaram apadaspadasam bhutam kim anyat kama hoitakam. Krishna, he's speaking, like a demon. In fact, at one point, he actually imitates a demon. This is one of the first verses I memorized. I don't know, I was attracted to it. Ishwaroham aham bogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. I am the Ishvara. I am the Lord. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. Who can be more powerful than me? Krishna's in the 16th chapter. So this is what we're faced with in this Kali Yuga. Little demons and big demons. The big demons marshal so many forces and cause so much suffering in people. So this is the countervailing force. We are part of the revolution. And when I was a kid, I was 11, 12, 15, 16, I was a revolutionary because I was against the war in Vietnam. And there were others, who were like that. But that was, we didn't get anywhere. It was a failed revolution. We couldn't stop the war. So many people got killed. It was horrible. And but that I think, maybe from a previous life, I had that feeling, this is horrible. you know, these innocent people are getting bombed by the country. And I have a little job. I'm paying taxes and it's supporting it. You know, this is you know. So I felt I had to do something. So similarly, this Bhagavatam is meant to bring about, Prabhupada uses this word, a revolution in the misdirected lives of this misguided civilization. There's this famous verse like that. Tad Vag Visargo Janataga Viplavo. Viplavo literally means to capsize a boat, you know. So that's, I think, what a revolution is. You know, everything is going along smoothly and you cause a major revolution. That's what's needed. Revolution in the consciousness of people, so that they'll understand what's really important in life and how to live a life that's not only good for you, but good for everybody else. That's what we're trying to do here. So, the foolish cannot see this, you know, so we want to become a Shastra Chakshush. All right. Yatanto yoginas chainam pashyant yatman navastitam yatantyo prakutatmano nainam pashyant chetasaha. Okay, so this is the contrast between the jnana chakshus, those who see through the eyes of knowledge, and then the achetasa, those who are seeing with no consciousness. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. Purport. There are many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word yogina is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are many so-called yogis, and there are many so-called associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. They have no other information. They are called yatanto prakutatmana. Even though they are endeavoring in so-called yoga in a so-called yoga system, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of the transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in the yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord, in other words, the bhakti yogis, those engaged in pure devotional service and Krishna consciousness, can understand how things are taking place. Okay, time out for a second as I put my coat on. I don't even have to look at you to get cold. I'm not actually cold. So instead of running to turn the heat on, I'll do what everyone else is doing and wearing these nice thick coats. Oh, there we go. No, we don't need. Are you cold? If you're cold, turn on the heat. Because when I put this on, I'm no longer cold. Yeah, right. Okay, so Krishna is you know, telling us to become jnana chakshush, not pashyanti achetasa, but seeing without real consciousness. So that jnana chakshu comes from cultivating knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and trying to see through the eyes of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and the Shastra. And that really is an important part of our consciousness. Okay, now he's going to describe some more of his glories here, as he often does, for our benefit. Yadaditikatam tejo jagadbhasiyate kilam yachandamasi yachagno tattejo vindimamakam. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. Purport. The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. Everyone sees the sun, the moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and he is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. From this verse, we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole universe. There are different universes and there are different suns, moons and planets also. But in each universe there is only one sun. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.21, the moon is one of the stars, nakshatra namaham shashi. Sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. With the rise of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. They set fire to prepare their foodstuff. They set fire to start the factories, etc. So many things are done with the help of fire. Therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Without his mercy, there cannot be sun. Without his mercy, there cannot be moon. And without his mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of the sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. And I'll tell you another thing that provoked Krishna consciousness in the soul. The pandemic. Suddenly, the act of breathing was no longer so, unconscious. Who's conscious of breathing during the day? You can forget your breathing. Unless your breathing is somehow stopped, then you're very conscious of it. So the fact that there was this danger to this very essential function in life suddenly brought a very important Krishna conscious principle forcibly to mind. I could die at any time. I could get sick at any time. And seeing the tenuousness of our life in each body, in these bodies, is an important impetus for Krishna consciousness. Because one of the basic foundational principles, the state of your consciousness when you leave this body is going to determine your next life. So if you can leave your body at any time, you think, oh my God, what am I thinking about? This video game, that thing, this person. That's going to determine my life. I'm going to enter into the video game. No, it's really a problem. So therefore, we had a whole bunch of people joining. I don't know if you remember. You remember? But yeah, Dvijamani and Govardhan were the two ones who mainly stayed. But we had others who stayed for some time because suddenly they'd gotten a book and maybe they read a book and it was and there was some idea of birth and death and the time of death and. Somehow or other, we had a bunch of people. But you can see how, as soon as things started to come a little, less, there was vaccines and there were things that were dealing with it. Then the people who were, taking shelter said, well, I don't know if I need this so much anymore, off they went. We had one fellow, young boy, had high hopes for him, and he always liked to dance in kirtan. You remember that verse in the 9th chapter near the beginning, Susukam Kartam Aviyam? Second Raja Vijay Rajaguyam. This practice is very joyful and easily, joyfully performed. Susukam Kartam Aviyam. Anyway, he didn't make it. One of the problems was he was raised, I think, abroad or something. He couldn't read the books very well. He was trying to read and he couldn't do it. That's a real hardship. But those who were fortunate enough to get into Krishna consciousness and feel the benefit. And you can see it explains everything. So many things that are inexplicable become explained. When you see, that there's a person behind everything, that's a big thing. Nothing is happening impersonally. The moon is rising and the sun is there, and you see, yes, we benefit so much from the moon, and the beauty of the moon and the sun. Obviously, is so essential. and that this is Krishna's mercy. He's arranging for all of this material world because we wanted it. We wanted a world separate for him. But at the same time, he arranges to come here. He sends his emissaries. He's in our hearts and trying to guide us back home, back to Godhead. And he's, and then he sends his extraordinary emissary like Srila Prabhupada, who's ready to risk everything in order to give us this knowledge and give us this mantra, and especially give us prasadam. That was the main weapon. No, I mean, I don't know if there's videos that was made of those early days in 26th Avenue, and I think it's also in the books. Prabhupada mentioned how, and the devotees' remembrances, those early feasts, Prabhupada cooked them, the early Sunday feasts. The Sunday feast actually was in a suggestion of Bhakta Keith, who became Kirtananda. And they said, Prabhupada, in America, a lot of people sit down to a Sunday afternoon dinner, a family dinner. So if we had a Sunday feast, people could relate to that and they could come. So Prabhupada, yes, let's do it. So he was cooking those first feasts. You can imagine, what I would give to be able to sit down. Prabhupada's cooking. But that's right there, Chaturvadashi Bhagavat Prasada. In the Gurvashika we sing every morning. Chaturvidha. So you have these four kinds of things. Food that you I think taste, you drink, you swallow, but the food you swallow everything. I could never understand that one. But that's a Chaturvidha, Sri Bhagavat Prasada. Swadu means delicious. Swad anu. Chaturvidha Sri Bhagavat Prasada. Swavana Chiptan Hari Bhakta Sanghan. So when he sees that the Bhakta Sanghan, all of the devotees, are satisfied by eating the prasadam, then he becomes satisfied. He's not satisfied by eating the prasadam, by seeing that it's prasadam that he's cooked especially. Very sweet, actually. So that that's the gift. I mean, the gifts of the Guru are there. In the first is he's like a cloud of mercy raining down, saving us from the forest fire of material life. Samsara davana lita loka tranaya karunya ganaganatvam, pouring down that cloud of mercy. And how is he doing it? Teaching us Mahaprabhu Kirtan and Rita Gita. He's teaching us the Kirtan taught by Lord Chaitanya. And he himself is relishing it, playing the instruments and dancing. And then, of course, the temple worship is so important, and that's in there in the third verse. Shri Vigraharadhana Nityanana Shringara Tanmandita Marjanado Yukta say he himself is engaged in cleaning the temple and worshiping the deities, and he's teaching his devotees to do the same. And as soon as you have deities, what have you got? Prasadam, Chaturvadashi Bhagavat Prasadam. And then it goes into this esoteric internal relationship with Krishna. Yatsya Prasadat Bhagavat, no, I'm sorry, Shri Radhika Madhavayo Pada. So he's relishing the personal service to Radha and Krishna, and because he's so skilled in certain services, Nakundayuno Radhikil, he therefore he's very dear to Radha and Krishna. And then Sakshad Haritvena Samasta Shastra. There's a nice pastime about this. As an editor, you can see how sometimes, like this word, Prabhupada uses the word enjoy to mean experience. Because that's why we had enjoying the happiness and distress. You don't enjoy it in stress, experiencing happiness and distress. So there's little anomalies in the language that needed attention. So when Prabhupada was starting, he had that crew in 26th Avenue, and he's introducing, the importance of worshiping the Guru as one would worship the Lord. That's in the Sakshat Advaita. So he mentioned that, yes, the Guru, but he didn't say worship as you would worship. He just said worship as God, and then he walked upstairs, and everyone freaked out. Worship as God? That means that you worship him as he's God. And the devotee said, "What are we going to do? So Kirtan said, "Well, you should ask him to clear it up. Go to him and ask." And he explained, "No, it's not that he is God, but that you worship him in the same way you would worship God. But just instead of as worship as you would God, that then was not. But he left that part out. Just worship as God." And meaning, worship as you would God. But you can see the confusion there. Umapati, he hadn't been initiated yet. He was one of the first. He was completely freaked out by it. I said, "Oh God, it's blowing my mind is blown." This is a big thing, LSD. So you read about discuss, and they asked him, and finally it became clear. So we have to be careful with that. Okay. So where were we? So he's describing how he is empowering all the elements of the material world, and we depend on them. Now he's going on. Gama Vishyata Bhutani Dharayam Yahamodasa Pushnami Chaushadhi Sarvah Somo Bhutva Rasatmakaha. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. Purport. It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said there that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like straw and other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet, just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets which are floating in the air are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in the air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word rasatmakaha is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. So Krishna is describing how he's in everything, and he's holding up the planets, and he's making all the vegetables succulent through the moon energy. So when next time we see the moon, we can think of this verse and say, "Oh, thank the moon." And we've had a full moon. It's like a full moon, isn't it? Very beautiful. I read my apps and it said rain, 100% chance of rain, and go out, it's perfectly clear sky, and here's the moon. The hell with the apps. Okay, let's do one more, and then tomorrow we can read this very important, famous verse, Sarva Sachaha Mridisani Vishnu. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashitaha Pranapanam Samayukta Pachamyannam Chaturvidham. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life outgoing and incoming to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff. Purport. According to Ayurvedic Shastra, we understand that there is a fire in the stomach which digests all food sent there. When the fire is not blazing, there is no hunger, and when the fire is in order, we become hungry. Sometimes, when the fire is not going on nicely, treatment is required. In any case, this fire is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedic mantras, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 591, also confirm that the Supreme Lord, or Brahman, is situated in the form of fire within the stomach and is digesting all kinds of foodstuffs. I am Agnir Vaishvanaro Yoyam Antak Purushe Yenedam Annam Pachyate. Therefore, since he is helping the digestion of all kinds of foodstuff, the living entity is not independent in the eating process. Unless the Supreme Lord helps him in digesting, there is no possibility of eating. He thus produces and digests food, and by his grace we are enjoying life. In the Vedanta Sutra 1.2.27, this is confirmed. Shabdadibhyo ntak patistanach cha. The Lord is situated within sound and within the body, within the air and even within the stomach, or as the digestive force. There are 4 kinds of foodstuff. Some are drunk, some are chewed, some are licked up, and some are sucked. And he is the digestive force for all of them. So, this is again Krishna, these several verses, helping us to learn how to see him and experience him in every step of life. We eat something and it gets digested, and we should be thankful Krishna's the force, he's helping us out. Otherwise, if you can't digest it, then you get sick. So at every step, we're depending on him. The beating of the hearts, the functioning of our body in so many ways. So we should try to use the body to what it's meant for. As one of my favorite verses you've heard many times, manusyam. Manushya is human body. Artadamanityam api hadira turnam yateta nabateta namityava nikshe yasaya vishaya kalusarvataksya. You have attained a very difficult to attain, after many, many births, oh fortunate soul, you have attained difficult to attain human form, which alone among living beings can give you the ultimate goal of life, artadam. But like all others, it's temporary, so don't waste time. That's why the next verse is turnam, immediately. Turnam yateta, strive, turnam yateta napateta namityava. As long as your body hasn't died, you have breath in your lungs, then you should be sober-minded and strive for the ultimate good, nikshayasa, which is attainment of love of God and return back to Godhead. Because after all, Vishaya Kalasarvataksat, in all these other forms you've inhabited, 8,400,000, who knows how many, again and again, different rounds of Brahma's life. What's it gotten you? All of this sense gratification. Just another imprisonment in body and more suffering, So therefore, there is this verse that I was inspired by, a verse by Lord Rishabdev, very famous verse. And it goes like this. Don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for fleeting happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. Endless. You can imagine. We can only imagine in its conditioned state. But to have, and we can see that great souls like Srila Prabhupada, we saw that wherever he was in any condition, he was in touch with Krishna, and there was a peacefulness and a joy that he was experiencing at every moment. It didn't just depend on, because when we're in the conditioned state, it all depends on our condition, which can be changed at any moment, right? But if you're really situated in perfect Krishna consciousness, you're always in touch with that source of absolute bliss, Krishna. So it's just like Krishna, he's never depressed. He's never bored, It's always something he's planning, So because he's always enjoying Leela. I was hearing a lecture today, Prabhupada was describing one of his godbrothers had been a scientist, and he came in touch with the devotees, I think, when Bhaktisiddhanta sent some devotees to England, and he was searching, and he came to India and in search of God, and he went to this temple, that temple, this temple, that temple. But he saw that each of those other deities besides Krishna, they were doing some work, whether it was meditating, or this or that, But when he saw Krishna, he was playing. He was playing the flute, just enjoying. And that's the difference. And I often ask, well, what would you do if you were God? Would you think, well, okay, I'll enjoy, and then, vary things that I'll also have a little misery, maybe I'll be depressed for a while. No. You would say, 100%. Every moment I want to enjoy like anything. And that's what Krishna does. Different variety of lila. Lila means play. It means something you want to do, not that you have to do. He doesn't have to do anything. There's a famous verse Prabhupada would always quote, and I'll have a poem. And he says, Naktasya karyam karanam cha vijjate. For the Lord, there are no duties to perform. Duty is imposed by a higher power. Right? You have to do it. So, but in order to manage this whole universe and everything, he doesn't have to do anything. Now, Prabhupada, it's again the language, he doesn't have anything to do. That's a different phrase. It means that, the mother says to the son, don't you have anything to do? You're just sitting there, playing the video game. Get up and help me wash the dishes or something. But Krishna doesn't have to do anything in order to manage this universe. It's all done by his expansions and his energies. So what is he doing then? He's playing. He's Leela. Leela means play. We had this devotee here, wonderful name, Kautakarnava. Kautaka is a name for Krishna, means he was always playing, he's full of fun. You see? Arnava means an ocean. So Krishna is an ocean of fun, playing, and he's inviting us to play with him. That's the whole idea. So that Leela is all attractive, because that's our original state. So if we hear about it, it becomes a source of transcendental pleasure. The purer we are, the more we'll take pleasure in that. Okay, I'm going to stop there so that we have time for a little poem. I actually picked out a poem I'm going to read. Or maybe this will just help me recite it, because I think I know it by heart. So we all seen this picture of Radha and Krishna on the swing. This is probably too small at the bottom there. The swinging, right? Swinging festival. So I wrote a poem about that. This was for a calendar many years ago. Where blooming flowers spread their sweet perfumes, where clear Yamuna flows and songbirds sing, where all the land a lovely light illumes, Shri Radha and Shri Krishna gently swing. This pastime of their love in Braja's bowers forever charms their dearest devotees, whose hearts Shri Krishna's sweetness overpowers, obscuring his prodigious potencies. Whatever in this world we know as love is just a shadow of the love they feel. The wise aspire to learn the secrets of devotion's path and taste that love ideal. So there we go. That's your instruction. And so, homework. Try to increase your love for Krishna a little bit more between today and tomorrow night. Okay, and tomorrow, no question. Text 15. 15:15, a very famous verse. 15:15. Krishna is the super soul. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now we have a couple of minutes, or 1 minute at least, to prepare for the Arti. Can you take this one too? Thank you, Kathy.